knowing the headlines isn't always enough. Sometimes you need to talk about it. For stimulating conversation on the day's hot topics, this is your station. This is your show. The Ryan Jespersen Show on 630 CHED.
Kind of an interesting situation right now, friends. There was a development on Tuesday at a meeting of Edmonton's Catholic School Board trustees. And this is something that it's a public meeting. Obviously, members of the public are able to attend. And there was a development at this meeting as supporters of a student and the family of a student raised their fists in the air. We have an individual joining me here in studio who's well known, I think, to Edmontonians and well known to listeners of this show, Bashir Mohamed, a community organizer, certainly a researcher. You've established yourself as that, Bashir, by way of your Twitter account, although I know you're just going to say you're just a random guy.
Yeah, I just float around and do what I can.
You don't represent an organization or an agency here.
No. So the family reached out to me September 12th. So her son Emmell went to school wearing a do-rag.
So hang on a second. One of the things that I have to say at the outset of this interview, and I'm sorry to step on your toes, is that we have learned here at Corus Radio in the last little bit, I'm talking in the last number of minutes, that as a result of developments at Tuesday's meeting, that there may be pending legal action against you or against individuals. We don't know. I don't have the full details. Yeah. But we have been contacted here, and this is a unique position for me to be in as host, most especially on a live broadcast, that the legal implications of this could extend to this broadcast and this radio station. In other words, we're being threatened with a lawsuit if you and I continue a conversation about the specifics of what's going on. And you look as though you're sort of learning this for the first time yourself.
Yeah, I learned this through you. Actually, driving here, driving here is when I found out that they're looking into suing me. I've gotten nothing from them. I'm a very easy person to contact. They can reach out to me, and if they want to go down that road, then I'm willing to go down that road. I'm not afraid.
So I don't want to turn this into a thing where I'm involved in any or where this show is forced off the air, and I don't want to put you in a tough position.
I'm okay with whatever they do.
Yeah, I'm sure that you do have legal representation, but we're put in a tough position here, unfortunately, Bashir, and you can imagine that myself as the host of a show that represents itself as one that'll go into areas that are uncomfortable to accomplish or to facilitate important conversations. That this is something I don't certainly operate with what's the word I'm looking for? It drives me a little bit nuts when the show is when there's an attempt to intimidate a broadcast like this. But unfortunately, I'm in a position where we're really going to have to limit what we say. Yeah, but I think that it is public record, and it was a public meeting on Tuesday. And maybe in general terms, from your perspective, you can tell me why it was, why what happened on Tuesday. In general terms, why were you there at this board meeting?
Yeah, so to give some context, this whole issue started because Emmell, Una's son, wore a do-rag to school and was accused of being in a gang. So she reached out to me in September. Back then, all she wanted was an apology. So she had a meeting with the principal. Long story short, the principal said that there were screaming and threats and stuff. So she pushed the panic button, canceled the meeting, and then what ended up happening was that she was banned from the school for 1 year. So then she recorded that meeting. We released the audio. The audio disproved a key number of things. So there wasn't yelling. Racism was discussed in the meeting. Anyways, long story short, it's been 2 months of back and forth with us in the school board. We've also met with the minister, and the Tuesday meeting was their second public meeting since this has been an issue. So our only purpose there was to go and have a silent protest.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we I've never been in a position like this before, Bashir, where this is unfolding live. I'm receiving messages as you and I are speaking. Legal counsel is involved. Yeah. This is really unfortunate. Why don't we have a bigger conversation here about what is motivating your activism and your involvement in representing Edmontonians that feel as though they are being that they are subject to injustice. I mean, take us into your perspective, generally speaking.
Yeah, well, I guess the reason I do this is because this is the city I grew up in. For some context, I wasn't born here. I came to Canada as a refugee in 1997, and we landed straight in Edmonton. February 12th, 1997 is when we came here, and it was actually the first time I saw snow. And my sister actually convinced me that snow was sugar, so I put it in my backpack and it all melted. So Edmonton is a city I grew up in. I did all my schooling here, elementary to university. I've worked in the provincial government, and it's the city I know the best. And when we landed here, on the landing form, there's a section that says, person willing to support you. And all that was written in that box was Edmonton, Alberta. So this is a place that I have a very strong connection to. And growing up, when things like this happen, when Una reached out to me, I felt like it was my responsibility to speak out. I guess to speak like very generally, I'm in a very privileged position. I'm somebody who understands social media, who understands Edmonton's like media landscape, political landscape, so that when an institution goes and tries to do something, I at least kind of know how to push back, or I at least know how to get attention to the issue at hand.
One of the things I think that is characterized your civic engagement and is the amount of research that you've been doing, the stories you've been telling. Yeah. You've been enlightening a lot of Edmontonians, I think, from varied backgrounds on our city's history, on our province's history, and it's remarkable, really, that this is something that, like you said, you're just a guy. You're not on salary somewhere as a paid researcher to be doing this. This is a matter of personal conviction for you, and it really is remarkable.
Yeah. So when you go to that point, like the reason why I spend so much time with evidence, the reason why I told you we can't talk about the reason why I get evidence, like, for example, the carding stuff that happened a couple years ago. The reason why I spent months getting that data is because the first step of even talking about racism in Canada is proving that it's an actual issue, because that's the opposition I'll always get. So that's why everything is so researched. That's why everything is so prepared. That's why I have very extensive communications regarding this whole issue.
Yeah, when you're referencing the carding there, let's talk about that. This is something, it's not just been an issue in Edmonton. It's been a conversation involving police departments and police forces around the world, quite frankly, and most especially, I think, in Canada and the United States. Yeah. Do you perceive, or do you feel that there has been progress made?
Sort of. So what happened was we released the data, and then what ended up happening was the police said that they would limit carding. So I think before there was like 26,000 or 26 to 27,000 carding like prior to 2017, like per year, and then now like it's much less. And every quarter they actually have to review each case to see if there's racial profiling. So carding still does happen. At the very least, now people are aware of it. For some context, when that whole issue started, I spoke to some cops before, and I was like, hey, is carding an issue here? Like, is there a racial disparity? And they told me there wasn't. Thankfully, I didn't believe them because I filed a FOIP, and then that's what led to all this. But yeah, it's still a problem. There's also other things too, like school resource officers. Like policing in schools is a huge issue here. Actually, sorry, I keep wanting to go back, but
I know. You know what? Can I just tell you how strange this is? As an interviewer and as someone this is, and it's something that you don't typically have to adjust or amend a game plan for an interview. I'm not afraid of fact. I know you're not afraid of fact, and I know that in this scenario they wouldn't want to be described as your adversaries, but I don't think that the Edmonton Catholic School Board should be afraid of fact either, and we're open to a robust conversation.
Is it okay?
The fact of the matter is, Bashir, is it okay what?
Is it okay if like if I get a little personal, like explain the personal impact of, I guess, not just the Catholic School Board, but
why don't we keep the Catholic School Board out of this?
Yeah.
Because basically, I mean, the fact of the matter is, and this is on the record, I mean, they're threatening to sue me and sue us.
Yeah.
But you want to tell me what your personal experience is not invoking them, I'd be happy to give you the floor.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so the reason why I call myself a random guy is, like, I don't want to frame myself as, like, an activist or whatever.
How come?
I mean, I just want to be someone who lives their life, I guess, but also understands that there is a responsibility to do all these things. I think once I label myself an activist, then it becomes self-serving, if that makes sense. It's actually really awkward right now to actually be talking about myself so much, because usually I like talking about issues.
People might be interested to know what makes you tick.
Like, to be honest, what makes me tick is when, so, like, I'm a random person. The mother who reached out to me is a random person, and actually every few weeks, someone will call me asking for help.
I'm not surprised.
And the thing about that is like, what keeps me going is they are random people going up against these major groups. It could be the Catholic School Board. It could be the Edmonton Police Service. These groups have hundreds of millions of dollars in funding, and these are people who are just trying to make a living. Like me, for example, I don't make money from any of this, and I think that's what motivates me so much, is because I'm in a privileged enough position where small people like myself, like Una, like the families that reach out to me, I'm in a position where we can at least push back, if that makes sense. And to talk about, like, the personal impact, it's really stressful. What's happening today is not rare for me. I remember one time in 2016, I was riding my bike down 104, and somebody called me the N-word. I filmed the aftermath, posted the video. The person who called me the N-word threatened to sue me because I posted a video with their face in it. So it has a huge impact, because back then I didn't have, I guess, the same profile now. I didn't have the same, like, legal support now. It's stressful.
What do you have with regards to legal support? It's really none of my business. I'm just curious, and you and I are kind of freewheeling right now.
Yeah.
This is not how I expected this conversation to go, and actually I applaud you for being flexible. But do you have, I mean, do lawyers represent you pro bono? Do people reach out to you? Do you retain legal counsel? I mean, do you have someone on retainer? How does it?
No. So yeah, like, anytime something happens, people usually reach out. It's like Carrie Diot, for example. So this is not an active legal thing, so I guess I can talk about it. So Carrie Diot is a local MP. Back in 2017, he took a photo with Faith Goldie, and this was a month after the Quebec mosque shooting. For context, Faith Goldie said that the mosque shooting was a false flag, and he refused to apologize for the photo. The photo's still up. You can still go on his Twitter and see the photo, by the way. I tweeted at him like a year later because he came up in the news, and I called him racist. And then Arthur Hamilton, the Conservative Party Canada's top lawyer, sent me a letter, and to be honest, I was just going to take down the tweet, but I don't know, like, I guess to speak personally, to be honest, when I feel like someone's bullying me, that motivates me to kind of be a little bit irrational, because in the last sentence of that letter, it said, govern yourself accordingly. And that just reminded me of every time growing up, someone has tried to bully me, discriminate against me. So I said no. I reached out to a lawyer who was willing to do it for free. We sent a strong letter back, and I heard nothing since. So actually, that's what I mean. I'm in a very lucky position. I'm able to do that. If they sent legal threats to the families that reach out to me, if they sent legal threats to the family in this case, they would have to abide by it, because they don't have this army behind them. I don't know, maybe I'm reckless, I don't know, but I truly believe that at the end of the day, if you're doing something that's morally right, then things will work out in the end. James Baldwin said, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced.
Say that again?
Nothing can be changed. Not everything that can be changed. Not everything can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced.
Yeah. Bashir Mohamed, I don't know if are you reckless? With you, I think you and I first spoke. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the first time that you and I spoke was after that incident on the bike.
Yeah.
I think that was the first time you and I spoke.
Yeah, I think I was here.
And we've spoken many times since.
Yeah.
You just strike me as a guy that, you're willing to put your name out there. You're willing to take shots because you have a strong personal conviction that there are wrongs that need to be righted, and you're not afraid to put. I mean, heck, man, I look back to even some of the information that you've revealed about, Edmonton mayoral candidates at the turn of the century.
Oh, yeah.
Cross burnings and crazy things and welcoming Klan meetings to Edmonton. And for a lot of people, it's including myself, there were moments of epiphany. There were like, what? I mean, some of these names that we didn't recognize, some parts of our city's history, and you have put those on people's radar because there's a great personal conviction.
Yeah, well, I mean, the first step of solving a problem is by recognizing that there is a problem. And I think the first thing there is understanding Edmonton's history. Sorry, it feels really weird, talking about myself in this way. But, with Edmonton's history, we talk about the Klan. While coming here, I was going by Connors Hill. In 1931, when the Klan got somebody in office, they burned a cross on Connors Hill. As a matter of fact, the Klan was formally incorporated by the province of Alberta up until 2003. So they were able to act within their name. They were able to do anything a society is able to do in the province of Alberta. And the funny thing is, the Klan's full name was the Invisible Empire Association of Alberta Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. Invisible Empire was the first part of their name, and that comes from when they would meet with politicians, and the politicians would say, we can't support you publicly, we must remain invisible. So the Klan's power didn't come from big scary men in hoods. It came from the silent support, but also the general indifference of the general public. And I think in many ways we still are living in that invisible empire, and they're able to exert influence in ways like this. I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah, let's just not. Named. Let's just not.
But this is their power. It's a huge systemic thing. Why? Each time something comes up, each time a family reaches out to me, the first response by a body is to exert their power. Can I talk about a case, a family that reached out a few weeks ago? So, a family reached out, and they said that their son was wanted by the cops. They said they were driving to the police station. And I asked them if they had a lawyer, and they said no. I was like, okay, before you go there, come here. So I met up with them.
Come where? Just
to meet me.
Okay.
Yeah. And
to be clear, you're not a lawyer.
No, I'm just a random guy. And I'm sitting in the car, and there's these two, they're a few years younger than me, but they looked scared. And I gave them the advice. I was like, hey, don't say. Well, actually, first I tried calling a lawyer, and he wasn't available. He wasn't answering initially. So what I ended up doing was I gave them the talk. Don't talk to police. All you should give them is your name and your date of birth. You don't have to give them anything else. And we had to keep repeating it too. I actually tried.
Why was this so important to you, though?
Because in the way Canada is set up, if you have the money, if you have the influence, you can navigate the legal system in a different way than somebody who doesn't. So for example, if they showed up, the police would have built a case around them. But if they had enough money to afford a lawyer, the lawyer would tell them, no, don't say anything, and it would work out. So anyways, so we get to the police. Oh, so a lawyer actually calls back, gives them a better talk. We show up, and I walk up to the gate. I'm like, hey, these guys are here to surrender themselves. And initially the cop is surprised, and they're like, oh, and they try asking for more information, and I say no. And then they say in a very rude way, oh, well, this will take much longer then. Then they went to the back. I gave them my name, by the way. Then they went to the back, and I think they realized who I was. because then they came back, and then they were so nice to me. Like, they were so nice to me. It was wild. And then we waited around for an hour. I asked if they were being charged, and then we left. If they didn't have a lawyer, they would have walked in there. They would have built a case against themselves. But somebody who does have that resource doesn't have to go through that, you know? And so many people fall through the cracks, and yeah, this was just one case, but it happens a lot.
You can follow Bashir Mohamed on Twitter, at Bashir Mohamed. He has outlined in detail his involvement in this story in question, the story that we intended to address today. Bashir, it's a matter of public record. People can read about it online.
Yeah, maybe next time.
Again, maybe next time, and you will be welcome back on this show. I appreciate your candid approach to this. I appreciate. Go ahead.
So, whoever the lawyer is, please send me the letter.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean,
I haven't got anything yet.
We'll just let that develop as it develops. Okay. Hopefully, you don't see a lawyer, or you don't see a letter. How's that?
But if they're going to threaten it,
in the meantime, I suspect that we'll all hear about it by way of your Twitter account. Bashir Mohamed, according to his own description, just a random guy.